So, hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Sunny, it's nice. We've had two apologies today from Councillor Steve Crystal and Councillor Kathy Crystal. Any variation of order to business? The only thing I'd like to do is put personnel in the private section at the end. Can I?
Okay. Yeah.
I propose that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting. Have we all had chance to read the minutes for the meeting that was held on the 18th of June?
Yep.
Are we all happy with those? Anybody got any comments they'd like to make?
No.
No, none at all.
We accept those as a record of the meeting. Yes?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Come on, guys, hands, please.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do we have, so we have Alan, Carolyn and Anne as members of the Whitworth, which would be their members of interests. Do we have anything else anybody would like to comment?
No.
Nope.
Public participation. So we've had some correspondence from some residents about one of the developments that have been one of the planning applications. We've all had time to read that. That was sent out to us all.
Yeah.
Out, do we, Sean? Oh.
Yeah, there was one sent today, but I think there was an earlier one as well. I don't think that's the only one.
We've had
I think
two.
there's two. There's two
We've
on the
got
same
two.
topic.
We got one from a group of residents who got together to send in a request for the town council to support them, and then you got an individual one today.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Have we all had a chance to read those?
I haven't got them
Yeah.
up on my computer.
It's essentially just, it's pretty much, do you want me to read it out? Is that the easiest way?
Yeah, they could do, because I ain't got it. I can't find
Hang
it
on.
here.
Let's find it. So here we go. So from the resident, this is the one that I received today from the resident. I write to object to the above application. This is referring to Bent Farm planning application at Farley Hill, Matlock, and wish my comments to be aired across what I understand is a closed Zoom meeting. This application has appeared to have been done via LPA in what I would term the incorrect manner, mainly that the site has no planning notice attached, and other than regularly searching planning register, we would not have found this application. Such underhanded methods make myself and my neighbours think this application is trying to be done under the radar of neighbours. I also firmly believe that the council is not following its own policy, and even in these strange and uncertain times, the display of a site notice would not breach any COVID regulations and would give members of the public on a very well walked route the opportunity to also comment. My main objection is, even though the drawings have been submitted but they yet again appear not to be representative of what's been actually built, it would seem the applicant or agent is yet again trying to mislead the LPA in what can only be described as a very large dominating structure on the hillside. We are also unable to confirm that the dimensions are drawn are also correct, as we have no ability to visit site, but previous applications would also seek to say that the applicant does mislead in such matters also. I believe that the property encroaches onto land and potentially has no ownership of the applicant, i.e. county council land, or the structure has deviated beyond the applicant's boundary in order that he satisfies his wall. My main objection with the swimming pool building is it looks like an industrial building and gained a story in height, and also deviates massively from the single-storey swimming pool building that was originally drawn. Residential curtilage has previously a garden detailed plan regarding planting, fencing, walling, etc., and this seems to have been overlooked for utilising cheaper options or fencing panels when stone walling was previously agreed. The applicant, when he took ownership of the site, sought to remove all stone boundary walls that were between fields, seeking to open the whole site up as it is now into one huge property from Amy Croft to Bent Farm, resulting in loss of the rural and traditional look of Farley Hill, and with this losing a valuable wildlife habitat. The applicant has sought to extend his drive/car park or turning area into a surface of road, planks and a covering of gravel that causes major drainage concerns, and the residue of the drive spill onto Farley Hill and which is also causing gravel to enter the public highway. We would suggest that this surface should be more of a permeable surface to allowing drainage into his own field.
Thank you. It's a very thought out response to the planning application. We're not going to comment on that now. We'll come back to that when we talk about the planning applications that we've had in this month, if that's all right.
Mhm.
Right, so our next one is to approve the annual governance statement. So this was sent around by Sian. Do you want to tell us about it, Sian?
Essentially, it's as much you've seen it before. Anybody that was here last May will have seen it before. Everything seems to be fine, whereas last May we obviously had issues with it. Whereas I say this year everything seems to be pretty much as it should be. So, and confirmed by the internal auditor.
Thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
So can I propose, Julie?
Sorry, so has that been sent out to us?
I ain't seen
All
it.
right.
It was Ian, I believe, sent it out as part of the package of stuff.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah,
I didn't get it. I got a picture of a house.
it was an attachment.
It was in a bigger document, and I purposely drew your attention to section 2 and 3, I think, which is the relevant bits.
Yeah,
Mm.
thank you. So can I propose then that we accept that statement?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that everybody else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to abstain because I haven't read it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to abstain as well.
Okay.
And the annual accounting statement as well. We should have all had time to read that. Do you want to tell us a bit about that, Sharon?
Yeah. So essentially, bear with me. I'll just get it up on my screen. Sorry, I have to go through this.
Did you get me on that last one, Sean? Because I ain't read it either.
So you haven't read it either,
No.
right? Okay. So that's 3 of you haven't read it.
I haven't seen it. No, I haven't read it.
Okay. So they are out in the package of documents that are sent out to you.
Yeah, I've got meeting documents for tonight. I've got last month. I've got last month's report
Mhm.
on the minutes, and then I've got a picture of a house, and that's it.
Okay, that one's a bit weird. I do not know why that is.
I
As I
need
say,
to-
I
I
know
don't know.
Mary's got them, and I know, as I say, everybody's been sent the same thing.
Right.
They're
Now-
all either Word documents or PDF, apart from a couple of days. So I don't know what you're accessing them on, but
I've definitely got, I've got them.
yeah,
No,
Alan's got them,
and
so
I'll-
everyone should have them.
yeah.
Oh, I've had a major sort of problem here, so I don't know. They're not here. I ain't got them. I'm looking.
Where the picture of the house is, that was one of the emails from a resident, wasn't it, about
It
that?
was.
About
Yeah.
that.
I've been looking for the agenda tonight, and I can't find the agenda or anything. So there's something gone wrong on my end, probably. I don't know. But I just haven't-
I'll take you through it bit by bit. Right.
My-
So the
my
initial.
computer's crashed. Hang on.
Right. So when we do, does everybody understand what the AGAR is? Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. If anybody doesn't, just shout up. Right. So the end of year accounting statement is it would be the second document that we fill in, and essentially it's our financial totals for certain things throughout the year. So for example, when we left the financial year last year, we had a carryover of £92,711, which as I say was brought into this financial year from last financial year. We had a precept last year of 139,565. We had other receipts of £6,915. So receipts, everything that we've had income, so allotments, all the rest of it. Staff costs this year were, well, for last financial year, were £21,395. We have no loan or interest capital repayments, so that box is 0. All of the payments we made last year are 133,068. Now that's higher than it was last year because some of the Whitworth grant, the checks bounced because they had a dodgy, well, somebody hadn't signed them clearly enough, and 3 of them came back. So that's higher. Plus we've also bought things like notice boards and things like this in this financial year. Balance carried forward from this year to next, into next year, £84,728. which is the same as the total value of cash and short-term investments. And then our total fixed asset list has gone up from 90,558 to 97,848 with the addition of a variety of things, including the notice boards.
Thank you.
That's it.
So can I propose then that we accept this annual governance and accountability return? Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Is everybody else all right with that?
Abstain.
No,
Okay.
I'm in the same boat, Doc, because I still want to read it. I ain't got anything. I've heard what you said, but
It's passed already, so we're abstaining, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm saying I'd like to see something.
Thank you. Okay.
I can't get it on here at all, so I'm stuck. Sorry.
Okay. Thanks. Sorry about that, Dave. We'll move on to item 8, the date for the period of the exercise of public rights.
This year it will be, as reported in yesterday's finance meeting, from the 1st of September to the 12th of October. This means that people from outside will be able to come and access our accounts to have a look through our unaudited accounts. We're doing it quite late this year because that's when I'll be back in. I shall be back in the office by then, and we'll be able to give people hard copies and things that they require. All right. Are you all happy with that?
What dates was that, Sian?
1st of September to the 12th of October.
Thank you.
I think obviously before we do that, we're just going to have to put a few thoughts into how we can make that safe.
I'm hoping that most people email in so I can email it out, but anybody that wants a hard copy, what I'll do is I will photocopy it off and I think I'll envelope it and meet them outside. That might be my best method to do it, to be honest, but I'll definitely be in there. So yeah,
Okay,
I can't think of another way to do it. Yeah.
Do you traditionally get a lot of people wanting to do that, Sian?
Not often, but it can happen sometimes. Yeah, it depends. You've got to have the availability there and a plan to deal with it. So as I say, what we'll do is we'll photocopy for anybody who wants hard copy, but anybody that's not got email, which we've got 60, you know, like we're 65% elderly, like sort of occupation in Darley. So it does mean that not everybody has got access to online stuff. So it's nice. We should give them hard copies really if they request it, and anybody that just wants one really.
When's that going to be available? 1st of September?
1st of September to the 12th of October.
Yeah, it's Iris will ask me about it, that's all.
Yeah, just tell her I'll send her copies. I can do her an envelope if somebody doesn't mind dropping it off with.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so the approval, item 9 is the approval of policies 2020. So there's the standing orders, financial regulations, and the internal control policy. So these are documents that we ratify every year, and obviously we should all be quite familiar with how they work. So first one, standing orders. Does anybody have any comments they'd like to make on that?
No. No.
So can I propose that we accept those?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We all show your hands, make sure Sian knows. Thank you.
Thank you.
The financial regulations. Has anybody got any comments on those? Can I propose then that we accept those? All show your hands.
Thank you.
Thanks. And then the internal control policy, there were a couple of typos that I've just told Sian about. But does anybody else have any other comments on those that they'd like to make?
No.
No? Can I propose that we accept them then? Thank you very much. That was easy. Number 10, my announcements. Well, isn't it nice to be out in the park again? Be able to have a cup of coffee in the park. I enjoyed that this afternoon.
That's very nice.
Very good. It's nice to see everything opening up again and places being busy. I've had a little ask around about any nominations for the Darley Champions. On Moorledge, there's been an organisation of 3 people who've been really helpful to all the residents on Moorledge. Dave Batterson, Debbie Steeples and Caroline Stoddart. So Dave, who's a vicar, who's been running quizzes. he's been going around and checking up on people regarding their mental health. And what I thought was really lovely as a mum is on Mother's Day, they took around a bunch of daffodils to all the ladies on the estate as a little thank you. I know that they've been doing a lot of shopping and they've been going and picking up prescriptions and those sorts of things. So I'd like to suggest that we give those people a little thank you voucher.
Yeah, that
We
would
all
be
happy
good.
with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was going to suggest this time that we got them from the Pickle Pear, because I noticed that they've just opened up and I thought that might be rather nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, last month we agreed that we were going to give a little coffee morning to Darley Dale in Bloom. Now that the cafe's opened up, Alan, I wondered if that's something that we could email out and invite to Darley. I'll email them, but I wondered if I could sort of with you organise how we can organise a little coffee morning, if that's all right. Okay, that's all I've got to say.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sorry, can-
No,
Yeah.
Julie.
Sorry, I was just chatting to somebody the other day and they said that they'd nominated somebody and
Yes, I was hoping to say that while Steve was here, because I wanted to say a well done to Steve, which is why I've not mentioned it now. But I just, because they've nominated Steve for being a really good neighbour, and that was something that I'd wanted to do whilst he was here, really.
okay,
So I thought I'd purposely leave that.
all right, that's fine.
I've not ignored it, I thought
Okay.
I'd wait for him to be here, that's all. Item 11, report from police or county and district councillors. Do we have anything?
No.
No?
I've not had anything. Dave, have you had anything?
No, I've got police still roaming around up on tippings. That's about it, really. And they were in the park the other day. That's all I know about.
Okay.
Cool.
Now, number 12, finance. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there last night. Is there anything that needs discussing from the finance meeting?
Yeah, are you all right if I take this, Alan and James?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, so the first thing that we talk about, obviously, if we go through the payments, if you're all right to just go through those. So Steve raised, so they were happy with all of them. You should all have received these, a list of these payments. Steve did raise that the laptops were charged to us at 1,300 instead of 1,280. Now, I did go back and have a look at the initial quote, and the bit that I saw that was, that might make a difference is the Norton security package. We were quoted for the Windows setup and the laptops, but that isn't actually, the Norton doesn't appear in on the quote that we were given. The thing that I will say about that is that according to our financial regulations, for all those that have read it, we should have those security and our risk assessments. We should have that in place anyway, so it makes it a necessity anyway. So yeah, so that's why that's raised up.
So-
£20.
Sorry, just to explain that, Sean, the original assumption was that they'd reuse the licenses from the two machines we had. Because they didn't have access to them, they've not been able to do that.
Yeah, there you go. So that's Ian's tech speak as to why that was. But apart from that, as I say, does anybody need me to run through the payments, or have you all seen them and are you happy with what we've got there?
Yeah,
Does-
fine.
You're all happy?
Yeah.
Dave, do you need me to go through them?
No. Have you got a bit about anything to do with this digger thing I've got?
Just
'Cause
hang
Is that-
fire.
Is that in
Right.
with that?
It's not, because I haven't, because I need a final invoice to pay him. We'll pay him after he's done the work, if that's all right, just in case.
So I can book him.
If you just give me a sec, we'll get there. So yeah, so Dave's thing did come up. So Ian, do you want to explain what it is that Dave's doing down on the allotment, please?
Well, okay, so Dave and I met with some of the allotment holders this morning and tried to get, if you like, the big picture about what's happening down there. So rather than keep coming back to the council with requests for money for jobs as they come along, actually we want to set out in front of you all exactly what we want to do in a number of phases. So the stuff that Dave's planning at the moment around digger I'd describe as phase 1. And it's really about clearing the ground and reclaiming some of the lost land that we can hopefully in future turn back into allotments. I'm talking with Chantal to Richard Comley, who's our guy at Whitworth, to come down and clear some trees, which will be sort of part of phase 2. But the end game really is to reclaim at least half a dozen allotments down there that are lost at the moment for various reasons. They're either very overgrown or flooded and are just unusable. So talking about it today, I think what we want to do is I'm going to spend a bit of time next week working with Dave on effectively a little project description that gives you a full visibility of the costs, and also factors in the money that you're going to get back. So some of this will start paying for itself in increased allotment fees, of course. So that's the next job for us, but it's important Dave gets on with this first phase, because that's the bit that kicks it all off. And we sort of talked about that at the last meeting.
So the first phase should free us up about 6 allotment plots, which should, in theory, over sort of the first year or so that we let them out, we should bring in at least 100 and 150 pounds. So the work within sort of 2 to 3 years, the money that we're paying on this should actually come back in allotment fees.
I misunderstood then, because I thought I was hearing we needed phase 2 and phase 3 to bring the allotments back into use.
Phase 2 is already paid for.
Okay.
You know, Richard Comley, he owes us hours and he obviously works for you guys. So we use him, but while we've been locked down, and we still had hours from him owing. So in theory, we've already paid for him as part of the money that we paid towards the Whitworth as verges. From my understanding, Kate's got a good record and a list of what it is how many hours we've got him for. And she's got it written down from then. So he'd only been doing sort of bits and bobs. Oh, hang on, sorry, Dawn's just arrived. There's Dawn. So yeah, so as I say, so Kate has assured us that we have time with Richard that we've already paid for already as part of what we guys pay for you for verge maintenance and the other bits and bobs that he does. And
sorry, Sean, so it's just an example of we shouldn't have started the project until we had a paper with the costs, because as you say, we've already paid for it. We could have used that resource for something else, couldn't we?
Yeah, ideally.
So we've begun a project without a full costing and without a full benefit analysis, which is not good.
Precisely why me and Ian have been in talking about that we are going to bring you next week a form for each of you to come to bring to the meeting every time you want to raise a project. The other thing you're going to get out with this form is a list of the projects that we already have on the go, which will be things you've come up with in meetings, things that are ongoing, and things that are sort of have stalled because of coronavirus and stuff that we're in the process of doing. Because part of what needs to come in these forms essentially is like Alan says, a cost benefit analysis for what it is that we're doing, but also we need to know how much hours of work for the office staff, how much hours of work is going to be done by councillors, and it will need to be filled in really every time somebody comes, so that we've got the groundwork before we jump off and sort of agree to do things without us fully knowing how long it's going to take us. So for example, Mary's cinema, for example, if Mary had brought the cinema to next week or next month, she would have filled this in with all of the detailed stuff that she sent me via email. When she first came up with the idea, she'd have done that same work, but she'd put it into the form to put in front of the council so that we could have looked at it, discussed it, decided and agreed it. And we think this is probably the best way to kind of go forwards, and as well so we can schedule ourselves better. I did send out Mary a calendar of the work that we do in the office. That's the stuff that we have to do every single month, sort of broken down by month as to what we're doing, and that hopefully has given us really gaps as to where we can add more projects in.
Yeah, fine. So I definitely agree we need that form. We definitely should be kicking off projects like this without some cost and benefit.
That is on our list, yeah.
Yeah.
Hello.
Thank you, James.
Thank you. The cost benefit analysis will be for everything then that we're putting through, that we're going to be spending money on, yeah?
Essentially, yeah. If it's anything, there's things that we don't have an option about doing, or the things like the events, but if you want to bring something new to the council that's going to cost money, or that's going to cost man hours, or, you know, anything that will financially cause us to have to spend something, whether that's on wages or whether that is on external contractors or whether that's on equipment or things to buy, then, and it's something that the councillors are bringing, then yeah, you'll have a form essentially for you to fill in to bring really all of the good ideas that we have, because we have many come in.
So we'll get a breakdown of all the costs, all the benefits,
The councillors will do so, yes, before submitting
everything
it.
like that, and that will include any future monies, obviously, for the Whitworth or anything else as well. Yeah, so
The money
good.
for the Whitworth is a grant, so we already get that broken down in the grant form that we do. We're not talking about grants here, we're talking about projects that councillors wish to achieve. So for example, if you say Steve decides to do bingo, he will bring a broken down sheet which has all the details in, who exactly is going to run what, how much work is going to be required from the office, what external things he'll need to bring in. Same with the allotments. If we say want to buy a patch of the allotments, what we'll have to spend money on, for example, solicitors, you know, or the purchase of the land or anything like that, but things that the councillors want to bring to the council to put through, so that we know exactly how much time and how much money we're going to roughly be spending on any one project, because we've got an awful lot of things that people have brought up on the go.
Okay, I hear you. Okay.
At that point,
Sorry, I think the only thing I wanted to add on that is that, you know, I think we're offering you a bit of support on that. So it's a bit of a joint effort.
Yeah.
So Sean and I will work with you to expose all those costs and help you get all those T's crossed and all those I's dotted. And then, you know, we'll have a bit of confidence when we put things in front of you that we've thought things through properly together.
I think that's important, because any project that we want to undertake, it's got to be feasible. And sometimes I think councillors are quite good at bringing things that just aren't particularly feasible. So it's nice to think that whatever is brought to the council is a worthwhile thing to do.
so is the allotment seen as feasible when it's doubling the money that's coming in then, or is that just... I'm finding
We just need to see the numbers, Dave, to show that. So what's the full costing and what's the benefit? We haven't seen that yet.
I think a lot of effort has gone into this by Dave, by Steve, by Ian. I think they've really got their act together on at least the first phase of this, and I do believe we should support them in the same way as the hours they've put in. The least we can do is get them started on this project. Once they start the project, by all means, we could then obviously look at the second phase later on, not a problem. But we've got to do something with that land, and they've already put a lot of effort into doing it. I just
Sean,
yeah, like I can understand. Because I get told all of the details. I think it's a good thing to be doing, because I get told all of the details. But from other councils' point of views, they might not be as informed about all the details of this project as others.
Where's
all
the figures that Steve put forward for me then?
If you just hang on a second, right? So
if we have all of the details in a pro forma that's sent around to all councillors, then everybody will understand the impacts of all of the projects. Whereas at the moment, it's the people who have been told, which I'm one of those people as the chair, rather than it being in everybody is informed.
But we all got the email with the costs on, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're now being told there's additional costs which haven't been communicated.
Right. So, sorry. Can I just let me just try and explain where I think we are then. So, you know, Dave's got a great vision for what he wants to do with the allotments. And I think the problem that we recognised this morning when we were down there is that we've not really presented that big picture to all of you guys. That actually we come to you with a sort of urgent request to get the thing off and running. And I think with hindsight, that was probably a mistake, but that's where we were at the time. I think what we're saying now is we're going to take some time. Next week, I'm going to sit down with Dave. We're going to try and give you that big picture. We do need that first phase to happen. You know, as James said, we discussed it at the last meeting. If we hold that up, then that will give us problems. So I'd really like you to give us the green light to at least do that bit. But what we will do is we'll flesh out what needs to be done after that to get to a point where those allotments are out and let to people on the waiting list. And you'll be able to then take a view on any additional expense. And it's fair to say most of the expenses up front, but there will be some expenditure later. But most of it is in that first phase, because it's the groundwork that clears it all to allow us to get on with the next steps.
The other side to it is that now the allotment holders have now formed themselves into a group again, which had fell apart because they give up on what the land was overgrowing, it wasn't manageable. what we're presenting to them at the moment is an option to get it all straightened out, and then they'll run as a committee, which they've now formed, and they will run their own committee down there to keep everything maintained. But we've got to get
Just
past.
as an example of the goodwill that Dave in particular has managed to get down there, I've let all the allotments now, and I was only able to let the last 2 allotments because the other allotments went in on their own time and cleared them. So, you know, we're in a great position with them now. We don't want to really lose too much momentum.
Nothing against doing the project. It's just we've got learnings as to how we do projects. So we can't start things without knowing what the end cost is and what the benefit is. So on projects, which
I think,
I know from ENG, Sean, we're going to address that issue.
I think, yeah, the issue that Alan raises here is valid. That, you know, we need to look at this. It's not even this specific project right now, but generally, I know from conversations I've had with the personnel committee as well and things like that, that coming forward with ideas for sort of office work, we need to do a little bit of prioritizing as well as to what's coming forward, and we need to know the costs of everything coming forward, so the things don't bite us when it comes behind. So as I say, that we'd come up already to address this was our best way, was to essentially have the pro forma for people to fill in that we will assist with where, you know, where we're able to, but so that people can bring their frequently brilliant ideas to council with a full idea of what we're getting into, as well, rather than sort of saying build me a temple over there and us kind of going, well, all right, we'll go off and try and work that out. Yeah, so it's very much more upfront and more clear and more transparent as well. It's something that we can, the other thing that we probably will request within some certain values of projects is a public consultation, to make sure that the public are aware of how much money is being spent and where it's being spent and whether that's a project that they're interested in going forward with in the first place.
Yeah.
Thank you, James.
Yeah. Can I just say, this first phase, does the first phase lend value to the allotments?
Yeah.
Ian?
Well, probably not on its own. I mean, it's preparing the ground. We still need to do more to make those allotments.
Will it be in a better position? Will it be in a better position by doing it? Will it be in a better state?
It starts to recover lost ground, James, which we can then start working on to turn into allotments.
So to just do that first phase will make it better. Will make the allotments
absolutely,
better.
absolutely. Yeah.
So that has value in its own.
It will transform bits of that land at the moment that are lost. They're just overgrown and completely lost.
Okay, so it improves the land. We've done the costings. I don't see what the problem is. Why can't we just at least allow the people who put the effort in to move forward? And then, well, it was mentioned last meeting, this. Obviously, they brought all the costings to us. It lends value.
Yeah, brought all the costings in, but I won't repeat what I've said. We've got a way forward on projects going forward, which I'm happy with, and we can learn from this one and do it better next time.
Well, I don't know what everyone feels, but I'm happy to proceed with what we've got so far, and then with other costings coming in, at least it's moving forward, and the efforts aren't slowed down. Dave,
would you like to propose?
Yeah, I propose, but I wanted to ask another question before I went any further.
Oh, go on, Dave.
Something I sent back to you the other day about this bunker that seems disappeared.
Right, I will give you clarification on this. So when I initially raised this with the allotment, the beginnings of your allotment group, which was obviously Gordon and people like that, when I first raised that with them, the understanding that I had was that they were going to go away and find some grants. And now I had it reported back to me that I was going to help them with this. And the 2 places they'd applied to, one was the local project fund from the district council, and the other was to Jason Atkin for £500. Now, my understanding was that this was they were going to get around about 750 if they were approved, £750 of money from alternative sources, and they were going to do that themselves as a group. And then they were going to apply to us for the remainder. which would come out of our allotment budget to build these, to build bunkers. Now, the bunkers that were happening there were falling down, but as I say, they seemed quite happy to move forward with applying for grants. Now, where that's got to, I'm not 100% sure. My understanding was that the £500 had been guaranteed, but there'd been a bit of a snarl in the sort of bureaucracy that they needed to put together a bank account or something like that, there'd been an issue, but I haven't heard much about it since with COVID. Have you got any further update on that, Ian?
Well, we'd effectively scheduled the guy at one point. We got the quotes in to do the work, and then the lockdown came along and killed it all off. But I think I should pick this up as part of this second phase work, Dave, and factor it in and put a proper cost on it, and then get it approved as part of that whole piece of work around Churchtown.
It had been passed and approved, and Jason Atkin has given £500. I don't know where it is. That's what.
Well,
yeah, as I say,
we'll get on that next week and try and sort all that out. I mean, don't forget we have changed the location, so we've changed the specification a bit from our side. So why don't I pick that up with you next week, and we'll put it into the project proposal.
Yep.
Okay, so Dave, could I ask you for a proposal for your project, please?
In what form do you want it? As in
the monetary. Give me the money. I need the monetary amount, please.
Ian's got that. It's 400.
£420, Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want the proposal?
Yes, please.
Right. That's to clear land at Church Lane using a mechanical digger to free up 8 allotment areas and tidy up 6 existing overgrown areas that are not usable, and then to pay for 2 lorry loads of stone which have been donated by Longcliffe Quarries. So I need 120 for that, for the lorry driver, which I'll get a receipt for, and I need 400 for the digger driver. Well, 318 to
380, yeah.
I haven't got the receipt here.
So it's 300 plus that, so that's 360 for that.
Put that on it, so I don't know what it is.
Yeah, we will claim back our VAT on that, but that's sort of neither here nor there. But yeah, it will be. So I think it's £360 for the digger, and then a 120 for the lorries.
I'm working behind here. I've got absolutely nothing. My computer's just blown up. I ain't got a clue what. Can't get in it.
Okay.
So that's on
420 plus VAT at the end of the day.
Yeah, thanks, Ian.
So could I have a second for that proposal, please?
Can we just clarify how much? Sorry, Mary.
Right.
What money are we approving?
£420 plus VAT.
£420 for the diggers plus the stone.
The lorry and the stone, yeah.
Thank you. Could I have a second for that proposal?
Happy to second it.
Everybody in agreement?
Julie,
Yeah.
Mary, yeah, brilliant.
Anybody-
Anne, was that you as well? Oh no, Anne, keep your hand down. Anne, put your hand down. Put your hand down. Put your hand down.
I know.
No.
I just wanted to say something. That was all.
Oh,
No, I can't vote because I'm an allotment holder, so I have an interest. But I would like to say how much all the allotment holders appreciate all the work you're doing there, because there hasn't been a lot that's happened at Churchtown for quite a while, really. And, you know, it's really encouraging for us.
It's got a lot working, hasn't it, Anne?
It has, yes.
Hell of a lot.
Yes. So, you know, and there's lots of community spirit there. And there always has been little groups of people who've all supported each other. But I think especially during lockdown and things like that, it's sort of grown and changed, and people are very much a community there.
Yeah, they're drawn together.
It's a community that you're supporting. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice, thank you. Was there anybody who was against spending that money? No?
hang on, I can't see anybody.
Thank you.
Can't see everybody.
Dawn?
Can I just make a point that the bunkers never went through as a motion,
No.
and I asked several questions that were never answered. So I'm happy for this part of the project, but I would like the bunker project to be more information and it's not just attached to this as a given.
No, that's what we said. We, as I say, Ian's already going to go through and put something together with the allotment holders.
Well, it was changed to CCTV and one CCTV.
Yeah, that was what they'd initially come up with, and then they sort of changed their mind to the bunkers. So yeah, that's to say if they change the specifications
as
well,
so
it needs
project.
to come back.
That's all I'm asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, fine. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, thank you for your work on that. Nice to get that moving forward.
Yeah.
Can we move on to the...
I just need to talk about signatories. I'm sorry, Mary.
Oh, sorry.
We're still in finance.
So
we're going to need, at the moment, we only have 2 councillors who are signatories on the bank. Now, more than that was signed up. However, I'm assuming their letters went astray because they never actually went onto the bank and put themselves through the process so they could approve payments. I need more than 2 councillors because it just isn't workable with 2. If something happens to one of you, we can't approve payments. That puts us in a ridiculously vulnerable place. Now, my normal suggestion for this would be that it be the finance committee members. However, at the moment, our finance committee is a bit of a loose sort of thing, and not everybody in the finance committee wants to be a signatory. So I've got 2, another 4, another 3 minimum, but 4 preferably, councillors that are willing to be signatories on the bank, please.
I've been one before, so don't mind.
Okay.
I'm okay.
Dave, was that a volunteerness?
Yeah, I've done it before. So. Are you still with RBS?
No, there's no actual signing checks. It's online banking.
Oh, God.
Does that change your feelings?
Yeah, I can't do it, can I?
Okay, right.
Oh, God.
Anyone else? Anyone?
We have to have some.
You've got to have somebody, or you're not even a functioning council.
I'll come back in again and say I'll do it. Put me
Right,
down.
James Dowling. Yeah. Alan, was that you?
No, I can't be, can
You
I?
can't,
I was told last time
no.
I couldn't be.
You could approve anything but Whitworth payments. That's the thing with you.
Right, well, I'm happy to do that.
Marisa?
You're on mute, Marisa.
Is it all done online then?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, if everything definitely needed to.
Thank you. I think so at this point, to be honest, Marisa. Yeah. All it is, literally, all you have to do is it's exactly the same. It's a similar thing to what they did at the Whitworth. You just have to log on and approve the finances. It's a minute's job. You just log on, you tick them, and you approve them after the meeting. It really isn't a complex job at all. I promise it's minimal difficulty.
Put my name on it then.
Dave, yeah?
Yeah, I'll probably
I'll show you how to do it. I'll show you how to do it.
Computer working by then. I ain't got any way of doing it.
You can do it on your phone.
Good,
Alan,
right.
can I put you down for as an emergency? Yeah. Anyone else? So that's me. I've got 4 there. But anybody else? Dawn, were you one of them? Sorry, Dawn. I can't hear you, Dawn.
You're on mute. You're on mute.
You're on mute, Dawn.
I'll just wear that one out.
There you go.
Dawn, are you all right to do it, Dawn?
No, I'm not.
No,
I was originally going to be on it, and I never got all the paperwork and stuff. So no, I won't be this time. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So at the moment, I've got James Dowling, Marisa Mellor, Dave Oakley, and Alan for emergencies with everything but the Whitworth payments. That's all right. I will take that for now.
Thank you. Are we done on finance?
Yeah.
Lovely.
Oh, Julie's got a hand up.
Oh, Julie.
Oh, all right, Julie.
Mary, I'm so sorry.
You're all right.
Could we possibly, I'm not sure how I do this. Do we need to step outside of standing orders?
I don't know what you're asking.
Can we go back to the audit that we've already discussed? I found it now. And I know now the reason for my confusion, because I spoke to Steve about it yesterday, and he said that it hadn't actually been signed off yet. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong, but the copy that I've got of the AGAR was sent out on Tuesday on the 16th. And looking at that, it's not signed off and it's not got the auditor's report on it.
Because
So
it has to be signed off at this meeting, Julie. You can't sign it off before the meeting. It has to be signed off by approval and minuted. So no AGAR is signed until this meeting.
No, but the auditor's not signed it off.
He's signed off a different one. I can send that one out to you if you like. I did give an update on the auditor's report.
I think everybody needs to see that before they vote on it. They need to see what his report is and that he's signed it off. We can't, I don't think
I updated the council on the internal auditor's report at the past, I think it was the meeting before. I may even have done it at the meeting before that one.
Right, but this isn't signed off. You've sent this out as a paper and it's not signed off by the auditor.
Because we cannot amalgamate the two packs.
But he's only just done it. So
no,
how
he
can
hasn't
we have had
only
it two meetings ago? I've just been told.
He did it before the previous meeting, Julie.
Right, okay. So where is the copy of it then? I don't think we can vote on something that isn't correct.
Why is it not correct?
Because it's just...
You aren't voting on the internal audit report. You are only voting on the AGAR, which you're not voting on the internal report. You're voting on the annual governance statement. The the only parts you're voting on is number 1, which is the section that states that we have done things correctly, and number 2, which is the accounting statement for the end of year.
But that's not signed off either.
No, because they have to be signed off at this meeting. Mary will sign copies.
The auditor hasn't signed it.
No, because the internal auditor doesn't sign those ones.
He does, because he signed the last one.
He signs his report section, not our report section.
No, he signed both sections. I remember. I've looked at it very closely.
There's no column for him to sign off anything other than his internal audit report. I'll send you his copy, but our bits aren't filled in for his copy.
Right. Well, I'd like, if you can minute then that I have queried that.
Yeah, happily.
And that I don't agree that we should be voting on it.
Fair comment.
Okay, we'll have a look through those reports. Thank you for those comments. Can I now ask Councillor Darley to move on to item 13 and report on the planning working group, please?
You certainly can. You just bear with me. I'll just fire up my laptop. Right, so Tuesday night we had a planning subcommittee meeting. We looked at 4 applications. You should have all had a copy of what we discussed and what our findings were. Number 1 was 27 Moorledge Matlock. We objected to that because we thought it was out of scale and compromised the size of the plot. Number 2 was the very good Pub Company Limited, the Plough, 2 Dales, erection of a storage building. We objected to that under the neighbourhood plan of NP16 for the use of materials, not for the building itself. We understand that they do need storage, and I actually quite like the bottom of it because it's going to be in stone. It's just the top part they wanted to do in steel, and I thought it would perhaps look more like a barn if it was done in timber. Number 3, Crofton 6-hall rise Darley Dale. That was a front and rear single-storey extension with the balcony. On first looking at this, I didn't have any problems with it, but then it was pointed out to me that at the end of the cul-de-sac where this house is situated are 2 bungalows, and this balcony will in fact look straight over the 2 bungalows. So again, we are objecting on the grounds of overlooking and loss of privacy. And finally, Bent Farm, Farley Hill, modification of replacement dwelling and swimming pool building. We're objecting because of its overbearing appearance, it's out of scale, bulk and massing of design, visual amenity and disproportionate development. So does anybody have anything to say on those? Are you happy to go with that?
Can I ask a question about the Bent Lane one, please?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
So quite a lot of the emails that we've had from residents have said that the plans that have been submitted aren't actually what is there.
Yeah.
Is that right?
They aren't actually things that we can object to as an objection, though. What I plan to do is next week, Steve and I will be doing our tag team, and we'll be ringing John Bradbury, and we will be raising all the issues that have come through from Paddy Petch and Donna Shimwell with regards to boundaries, with regards to if the plans actually correspond to what has been built already.
Okay.
Okay, so
Mary.
I will be raising that.
Mary, we'll need resolutions in all of them, and a resolution that you're happy for the councillors to approach John Badry and have that conversation on behalf as representatives of the council, please.
Okay, so Julie,
Each one a resolution.
Could you go through each one and propose?
Okay,
Sorry, does anybody else have any comments on any of those plans that they'd like to raise?
No.
Okay, would you like to go through them one by one then, Julie?
Okay, so 27 Moor Ledge, I propose that we object to the single-storey rear extension because it's out of scale and compromises the size of the plot.
Second.
Okay.
Yeah. Can I have raised hands, please, if you're happy with that? Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. One.
The Very Good Pub Company Limited, which is the Plough at Two Dales. It's erection of a single-storey building, and would like to advise we object on MP 16, use of materials, and we do have a preference for timber rather than steel.
Could I just ask that we could sort of just say that we've got no objections apart from the use of materials?
Well, it does come under MP 16 of the neighbourhood plan.
Okay.
Do they then have to do a whole new application?
No.
No. Okay.
Change of use of materials.
No, it's just we're advising planning.
Yeah.
What we think about it.
Thank you.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, planning have the final say, as usual.
Yeah.
So it'll go through on tin.
Okay, so we need to do a resolution on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Forward.
Can we have a second?
Yeah.
Second, whatever. Second.
Everybody, hands, please.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
seconded it. Okay.
Okay, so I'd like to propose that we object to 6 Hall Rise, Darley Dale, front and rear single-storey extension on the grounds of overlooking and loss of privacy.
Right, seconder.
Okay, whatever.
Everybody else?
Yeah.
Okay.
And finally,
Bent Farm.
I'd like to advise that we object on the grounds of overbearing appearance, out of scale, bulk and massing of design, visual amenity and disproportionate development.
Second that.
Second that. Yeah.
Hands.
Everyone else?
Yep.
Okay. And is it just you speaking to him, Julie? Or is it some other people that are going to speak to them?
Myself and Steve.
Okay. So can you essentially the motion will be that you're giving them the authority to go and speak to the planning department on this and put forward your objections to them directly.
We give Councillor Darley and Councillor Steve Crystal the authority to speak to the planning department at the district council about
essentially.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
Cool.
And if I could just give you a few updates since the last town council meeting, just to let you know, Hackney Methodist Chapel, Greenaway Lane, all their conditions have now been released, so they've got their full change of use from D1 to C3. Pickle Pear, it had 2 planning applications, one going through for decking at the front, one going through for decking at the back with an illuminated sign. that's been granted with conditions. So perhaps something we need to look out for in future, because the conditions for the decking is that should the building get a change of use from A3, the decking would no longer be appropriate. So it would need to be taken away. And secondly, and I think this might be quite interesting to local residents, the illuminated sign can only be lit during operational hours. So if they're leaving it on at night, they shouldn't be. So if anybody notices that, that is a condition of the planning. And the last one was a TPO, which was granted.
Can I just say one thing on the old surgery?
Oh yeah.
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 Has everybody seen that? What's come through from Ben Bryant?
No.
That just comes to me. Ben Bryant, the guy that applied for the HMO, has been in negotiations now for a couple of months with planning, looking for an alternative use for it, and he's now submitted plans to turn it into 10 self-contained apartments, 2-bedroomed and 1-bedroomed apartments, which will be sold on the open market. So, and the existing building will be demolished.
Flatten it.
Yep. So still at the early stages. I think it's actually just gone in now, the actual planning, but obviously it's one to keep an eye on.
Crikey, that's a lot now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you for that update.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I just ask something about planning?
Yeah.
Some time ago, we keep going over the same problems every time planning comes up. We say we don't want this or don't want that, and it just goes through anyway. We did talk about having a representation or group of representation from Darley Dale Council protecting our town from out of town planning district councillors passing things ad lib. And there was a talk about putting that together, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Where we could start representing Darley Dale in a better manner than just begging them not to put something stupid on. Are we any further forward? Can we get any further forward with that? Because it's every time.
Well,
it depends what you want to do.
Well, Julie and Steve have been going along to the district planning meetings, but also, bar ringing the planning officers, there's no meetings to go to at the moment, are there?
No.
It's just that I go to planning meetings as well, and most of the councillors that's on the planning, they don't even live around here. And we need to sort of put over our opinion a bit stronger sometimes.
Well, I do lobby councillors directly.
Yeah.
And I sometimes I think that's frowned upon, but if I feel strongly about something, I will email them all individually and lobby them. So other than that, I can't make Andrew Statham or Mark Salt go on the planning committee. If they're not interested, then it's up to other people within Derbyshire Dales, other district councillors, to fill those spaces on the committee. Obviously, we've got Jason. Jason is the chair, so he kind of...
He's got a casting vote, we can't...
Yeah, he just kind of sits in judgment.
It's just a shame that Julie does a fantastic job on looking into all this planning and everything, and it just gets submitted by the Darley Dale Council, and it's just basically ignored.
I have one idea on that, which I'll cover when we talk about the town report, because that tries to directly address that.
To some degree, there is the one point I should make. To some degree, you are limited by what you can do by your own authority and power. You only have a certain amount of power, and planning is, barring being consultees, planning is out of your remit.
Right.
It does affect us, but it is out of your remit. It's not something that it's the district council's area. We can comment, and we're invited to comment and should comment. But yeah.
Okay, perhaps work that, going back to that working group, maybe organising maybe 2 people like Steve and Julie, if they want to do it, to work with or put out the olive branch to Jason, and maybe he can discuss it with district, and maybe have a liaison group that can talk to them directly, and maybe have meetings with them and discuss matters a bit further that way. Perhaps that could be an idea.
Lovely, thank you. No, well, I think that's one for the planning committee to discuss, maybe. Thank you. Can we move on now to item 14 in the Whitworth Centre?
Well, as always, I've done reports that you've got. You've got 3 reports. You've got the general written update. You've got minutes of the meeting, and you've got a park financial statement which went to the financial meeting. This month we had, and I'm having to refer to it on the other screen, which is why I'm looking that way, so apologies if I'm not looking at you. We had the AGM this month, and out of the AGM we will do a full report on the year, or I'll write up a full report for the residents to view. It'll have a lot of highlights in it this year, and you can see that list there. For our 2nd year in our history, and the 2nd year running, we've achieved a surplus despite being hit at the end of the year with COVID. On top of it, achieving a surplus, we invested in 2 new playground areas, our biggest investment in a decade in catering facilities that helped, amongst other things, get the best hygiene rating we've had, and best possible rating. We've invested in new Wi-Fi facilities. We've conducted an environmental audit, which we're taking forward into some investment this year. We significantly improved resident communications, and that really is good now, with literally weekly surveys going out to consult residents on particular aspects of what they'd like to see happen. We introduced a Christmas catering offer, which went really successfully. We secured a £100,000 grant from the lottery. Darley in Bloom have been great in helping us create the sensory garden, which is just about done now. Our health and safety track record has been excellent through the year, with improvements in policies and training, and indeed auditing. We're pleased to be able to have helped the council with a number of activities, including the successful awards, an item that we'll come back to later. Yeah, we did introduce parking charges, which weren't everybody's cup of tea, but it has settled down on that, and literally we're launching tomorrow our annual parking pass option for residents, which is a £50 pass to allow people to park their car as often as they want over the course of the year, which is a particular request that was had actually both in town council meeting by the public and through consultation from the Whitworth. So, I mean, that's a pretty impressive list of stuff for 1 year, and it's nice to be able to write that down. Then at the end of the year came pretty devastating impact of COVID. But again, the good work I think we've done over the last couple of years, plus some really excellent work around communication and grant work and the crowdfunding scheme, has all put us in, allowed us to survive a very difficult period when many others have struggled. And we've had nothing really but positivity around how we also, through that difficult period with only 2 people working, we've managed to keep the park and the building in good condition. So, I mean, that's the past. The present then is, as Mary kindly said earlier, we've now had the opportunity to reopen the cafe. It's not yet as I would like it to be, but back to its cosy sake. It looks more like a bit of an airport security lounge at the moment, but it's getting there and going in the right direction. Importantly, we've got staff and customers happy and feeling safe with what they walk into. It's nice to hear, I'll come on to another thing later, that we're speaking to Di Cliff earlier. She had the first, she brought the Memory Club back into the sort of cafe surrounds today. And as you can imagine, there were a lot of elderly people that were really pleased to be seeing some of their friends appropriately socially distanced for the first time in a long time. Yeah, I'd expected to see more problems by now in our approach, but it's been relatively faultless so far. It's been a huge amount of work in following all the various new guidances that come out, whether that's public government guidance around the park, the buildings, social distancing, playgrounds, use of PPE. I think we've probably had about 20 different new pieces of guidance that we've had to go through and implement, and I think that's gone well. We are, however, in some ways, all of that was easy. Clearly, it wasn't easy, but in some ways, it was easy. The difficult bit now is getting the balance right between staffing levels as staff are starting to return from furlough and getting demand. And I guess our immediate ambition is just to try and cover our gross costs through having, giving people a basic cafe offer, which is building now, but not bringing back too many staff too quickly and then facing a financial problem for us. And it's so far so good on that. I think this week's been quite good, and hopefully if the weather this weekend, we'll have a very good weekend at the coming up. We've now selected our master planner consultant for the lottery project. That was voted on at the last board meeting last week, and we see some options upsides for us as a result of recent Treasury announcements, including new versions of furlough that come to play once the October scheme ends and it moves to the £1,000 per person, albeit the details of that aren't due until the end of the month. And what I want to talk about really is to take the opportunity of, certainly we will do this and supported by Age UK, to try and make them the most of the August offer, from where, as you're probably aware, on Monday to Wednesday, people can benefit from a half-price meal up to a value of £10. That's through August. Having spoke to both Katie Pugh and again Cliff on that, they are really keen to get behind this. They've spoken to many of them and many of their, let's call them, customers, and they floated the idea of a sort of a garden party type concept in August, where yes, we would have some inside seating, but can we create a nice sort of garden party feel with appropriate social distancing, using the space of the park, having a bit of music around and anything else that we can think of as a bit of, trying to safely welcome back people who've been very isolated for a long period of time to an environment where they'll feel comfortable, be able to meet their friends. And as I say, I wrote to you all suggesting that might be something the council will want to get involved with. And I'm more than happy if it's a council-led thing. I just think it's a good thing for the community. Now we have the opportunity to start doing that. So I guess if I was proposing anything, I'm not really proposing anything other than to say, does the council want to put its name to this garden party? Let's call it garden party events, or events that are going to take place in August. Does it want to be part of the communication associated with that, and help encourage people who feel comfortable to do that to want to come to the centre and benefit from a low price, nice meal in a good environment?
I think that sounds like a lovely idea. As long as we can have the Matlock ukulele group playing.
Yeah, I'll leave that to you, Mary.
Really taken with them.
What would need doing?
Caroline, as the other two trustees, anything you'd add to, anything I've missed that I shouldn't have covered, that I should have covered?
No, I think maybe we just need to sort of stress the fact that we've had an awful lot of positive feedback from the public about, the use of the Whitworth all the way through shutdown and afterwards, and I think people have begun to see it as a really positive resource that the council has supported for many years, which is great. Yeah,
I agree with that. It feels like it's become quite a centre of activity, especially amongst my children's friends. It's been a really pleasurable place to be.
So yeah, to my question, I mean, obviously any questions generally, but to my question on whether the council wants to put its name to the kind of event and concept I'm talking about, is well,
we need to
put that forward as a motion or not.
That's what we need to see. We need to see the all the details on it.
Say that again, James. Sorry, I missed that.
We need to see the details, like we spoke about earlier. Anything we propose as councillors, we need to go through the details of it.
James, you can do better than that.
And then,
I'll do.
It's good idea. I love the idea. I think the idea is fantastic. I really do. I'm 100% behind it. I think it's great. Just like we said earlier.
There are no more details, so I haven't got dates yet. There won't be any cost to the council. All I'm asking, does the council want to get involved in encouraging people to come to a garden party event?
But we want to do it correctly. Yeah.
Did you said there was no cost to the council? Is there any cost for it going to be taken on by the Whitworths?
We're considering. It depends. So I want some entertainment to be there. If Age UK are unable to provide some, then I'll probably fund some. I'd have to agree that.
But it's cost neutral for us.
I'm not proposing any cost for the council. I'm asking whether the council will get involved in the communication or whether it's just a Whitworth branded thing.
Great idea. I think it's fantastic.
Well, can I propose then that we put the council's name behind it and we offer some support in planning the event?
Yeah, and communicating it, I guess. And the idea he's got on who we might invite is very welcome.
Okay, great.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Could I know costs involved. I think it's a brilliant idea, and I think as a council we should be helping towards the cost, only a small amount, but the entertainment or something, you know, it is our community centre, you know, the residents' community centre. So could you put something together to put to the council towards helping towards the costs?
Well, I'll happily do that if I can't get free entertainment, and there is, I think that will probably be the area that you know, some help would be welcome. So I don't have the cost for that. So when I have that, if I need it, I'll drop you guys a note.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. It's like, just we agree to put his name, support it, but don't just cut out the fact that we're not open to financial help as well. I don't want to just.
Okay.
Sorry, John. Do you need to send the logo over, Alan?
Yes, that'd be helpful. As I say, my next step is I want it to be led by the customers as much as anything else. So Di is now coming up with a detailed proposal as to what she wants to do. She's asked for a sort of a meal platter type, an individual meal platter to be provided, to which we've agreed a target price of, you know, that nobody pays more than £5, so they get £10 of value for £5, basically the half price offer, for which we should be able to give them all a nice platter and make a really nice event of it.
Lovely. Well, Matlock Ukulele Group play for free. Just gonna put that out there.
If you got a contact for me, then just pass it over, Mary.
I've got one.
Brilliant.
I've got one for
let me know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Well, any help you need, Alan, I'm very happy to be involved in that. Sounds lovely.
Thanks, Mary. Well, I'll give you a ring.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for that update. What a positive year, considering what's happened. So thank you. Okay, so now we come to the item 15, review of committees and working groups. So have we all seen the document that has been produced for us?
Yeah.
After last night's meeting. So do we need to talk about that, or are we happy to sort of start a discussion? Do you want me to talk through it, or are we happy to start a discussion on that? Sorry, I'm just pulling it up on mine.
Yeah, which document is it? Because we've had 9 million.
Yeah.
Planning order, standing order committee example tours. Is that the one we're talking about?
That's the one. Yeah, that's the one.
So it's got spider diagrams on it. It's that one. So have we all had a chance to have a look at this?
Yeah, I mean, I have looked at it. I haven't, and to be honest, I thought I was going to have some questions on it, but I haven't. I think the only, and it's a real minor point, Mary, is sometimes we use words like on the finance one, management of the award of grants to local organisations up to £500, and I'm not sure whether we're using management in the sense of authorising or administering. So that's my only real comment on this. I think it's a good document. Whoever pulled this together has given it a lot of thought, and it's just being absolutely nailed on, so we don't get confused in a month's time. Well, I thought when people say that management was, I thought it actually had to come to the council afterwards, and not automatically
No,
approved by.
that's maybe Ian can point out if I'm wrong, but the management of the award of the grants, so they would be agreed by the finance committee and paid without that coming to council, and then that would just be said to council what has been agreed, but also the management would be so when a grant is paid, there is an expectation that we see the receipts of the project, we see evidence of it, so like pictures, article in the Community Voice. So there are some conditions given with grants, so it would be up to the finance committee to just make sure that all of those checks and balances had happened as well. Is that right, Ian?
Yes, it is. That's absolutely right. The council would always own the process, but the committee would administer it on a day-to-day basis.
Dawn?
Are we voting to agree to this tonight?
No, these are examples of what it is that we're looking at. What we want is to feel out how you feel about certain delegated powers and the things that we're going forward. The other suggestion that we would like to make as well is for councillors, as I said, I did send out an email to which I've only had 2 responses, requesting that all of you sort of give me a rough idea of your strengths and weaknesses, the things that you're really not interested in and the things that you are really interested in. And it occurs to me there's certain vulnerable areas where we need skill sets and things like that, but we also what do people really not want to get involved in? Because say for example it's no good as putting a committee together if then we can't get councillors to be on the committee. It's no good to us putting together you know, groups to do things if we can't get people on. Some of the things are not going to be as exciting as others. Some of it's going to be more grassroots. For example, sort of the committee that's, you know, we've sort of suggested Community Resources and Development Committee. It's not going to be shall we say, you know, quite as fancy as perhaps finances. Personnel requires sort of, you know, certain levels of skill sets and things like that. It wouldn't hurt for councillors to have a really good think about what committees they want to be on, what kind of time they're willing to dedicate to things, and, you know, what kind of skill sets they can bring to each committee, so that we know each committee is staffed by the best councillors, best group of councillors possible, and by the people that have got time to do and to give to the committees as well. They're all things that we have to do as part of our counselling, but the other thing is there's room for the committees to expand. So for example, if we wanted to take on things like street lighting and things like that, that could fall into Community Resources as sort of an expansion of that committee. Some of the committees in places will cross over almost inevitably, but again it's you know, so the entire idea is that we're lightening the load on the main committee on the main council meeting. It's a standard thing. This is how a lot of councils go about it, unless they do, say for example Bakewell, which I believe does 2 council meetings a month. You know, so decisions are made there in the 2 council meetings as opposed to in a committee format. But yes, but the key part about committees is that if you are on a committee, you're there, you take part and you fulfill your role to the best of your ability on that committee, and that if you're not on a committee, you trust the people that are on that committee to know what it is they're doing and talking about, which is that's a huge aspect of it really. And if councillors aren't really willing to do that, then there's not really much point us going further with this conversation, and we'll have to move to a 2 council meeting a month structure instead. But that's really where we're from at the moment.
Thank you. Does anybody have any?
Julie's got a hand up.
Sorry, Julie, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, obviously there is the trust thing, but also there's the fact of legal responsibility for actions of other councillors. You know, we're a council of 12, and we are all responsible for the decisions that we are devolving to other members of the council, and that worries me.
That very much falls into the trust issue. As I say, that's
an issue. It's not about trust. It's about being legally responsible.
This is certainly not this is not an unresponsible format for council management. This is pretty standard. Delegated authority is used by a majority of councils, certainly in this area, and in most councils really, all will have some sort of committee that enable them to make day-to-day decisions as well as the big decisions.
If a committee made a bad decision, a group of say 3 or 4 people made a bad decision, then the other 8 councillors are equally responsible.
I mean, that's
true of the full council meeting as well. What I was going to say is that it is unusual for a council the size of Darley Dale, you know, not to have a series of committees to reduce the load on the main council. And you're right, Julie, that's a risk, of course it is. But you know, in the main council, you know, sometimes you lose a vote and you still have to stand by that group decision. So it's just that really what this is about to me is this is about taking away some of the more mundane, low risk decisions that really, you know, clog up the council if you're not careful. Anything that's controversial, critical, you know, really important will still come to the council, and that's about getting these devolved powers right and setting the level correctly, to me.
Can I just point out as well that we actually only need 4 councillors to make a quorum meeting. So in theory, 3 councillors out of those 4 could make a decision that the rest of the council would have to stand by as well. So there's that. Alan?
Yeah, I just wanted to check. I think we voted last time that this was the strategy we wanted to follow, and that the next step would be to flesh it out into a precise, I guess, spec for each committee and what each committee would look like. Sounds like we've gone down some of the way, but from what Ian was saying, there's a bit more work to do on it. So it's almost probably, I'm not sure there's a huge value in having a lot of debate around this one. So we agreed a strategy. We now need to see detail. If there's any specific points of detail that people are unhappy with, then I think that's the time to have to challenge those points. But you can't really go back and challenge a strategy again until we've got to the end.
We need we need some guidance on what people are happy in terms of sort of delegating, and sort of that's a lot of the suggested things that are in there would be general suggestions as to what you're happy with people making decisions on in those committees. Is there anything that anybody's specifically very unhappy with? Is there anything that, you know, or the council as a whole is specifically unhappy with? But that gives us a jumping off board to put in place the final documents for those committees.
Thank
Essentially,
you.
what you've got in front of you is our best suggestions for delegated powers to those committees.
All right, thank you. Anne?
I think addressing your point, Julie, I mean, it's fair enough because it's a different way of working, isn't it? But usually where there are separate committees, then everybody gets the minutes from or notes from that committee meeting. Then they would often have a spot in the main council meeting where they bring forth anything that's contentious or there might be disagreement with, or it might have some impact on finances or how people see the council and reputation and things like that. So, you know, I suppose it's us being quite clear about that, isn't it? So that we can all work together.
I have no problem with that. I have no problem with committees, and I have no problem with committees coming to conclusions. I just think that their conclusions should be brought to a full council meeting and everybody should be made aware of them, and that, you know, the power shouldn't be devolved so much that things are happening that not all the councillors know about.
No, you should absolutely at all times know about everything. And as I say, you shall receive the minutes and the agendas of every single committee meeting. They will be accessible to all councillors that we do. And every meeting will be clerked as well. So you will have, you know, either me or Ian sat next to you giving you our advice, which is advice we get from DALC and that comes from our, you know, from the training that we do with DALC as well. And if there's anything that we don't know, we'll go away and clarify it before decisions are made. We will also tell you if a decision you're making is not acceptable or is illegal, and that will be minuted if you were to go against us, for example, against our best advice.
All right, thank you very much. Dawn, you're on mute.
Sorry. I actually agree with Julie, especially the Finance Committee. I think it should all come to full meetings, as it should do, just as a recommendation. This is what we recommend. I don't think they should have the power to grants up to £500. I don't think they should So that's all. Others I'm happy with. I'm happy with planning. I'm happy with personnel, but just put that down as my comment because Alan said it's our time to comment.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything that they'd like to say? Dave?
One of the committees, the resource one, that's a day-to-day running around in circles, sorting out problems which you know what's going off in Darley Dale. Dealing with the police, dealing with the platform, a few more people. So that committee isn't going to be making any financial commitment to anything. It's just basically day-to-day running the Darley Dale community. So that side of it is okay, I feel. But the people on that committee need to be able to talk to people with the council's authority.
Well, that's it. I think, you know, one of the things that we need to be clear about is that any decision that's made that could affect the reputation of the council, it's those sorts of things. It's not just the finance side of things, it's the sort of reputation and the running of the council that's important as well.
As you know, I throw messages backwards and forwards to you or Steve or whatever.
Yeah.
And that bolsters up what I tend to get up to if there's an issue with a resident or whatever.
Just the point of having the terms of reference written down crystal clear is so that everybody knows exactly what can and can't happen.
Where your line is, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just to make that crystal clear. So are there any other areas on these terms of reference that anybody else would like to comment on? So can I then assume that it's Sian and Ian, is there any other clarity that you would like from the councillors?
No, the only thing I would understand is obviously you've had your standing orders and your financial regulations. They form the basis for how the council runs, and that includes committees. So the terms of reference are you're specific to that committee, but you're still bound by your standing orders and your financial regulations. So just as I say, these committees are not out in the Wild West. They're bound in the same way that you're bound in meetings. You know, they just have very much specific terms of reference. They're almost standing orders for that specific committee, essentially, is what the terms of reference are. So there is all of that there, but they're given specific ability to do certain things within that the council willing to hand off on.
Thank you. So I don't think we need to make a proposal at the moment other than to say that, oh, sorry, Dawn, go on.
I probably jumped in a bit too quickly. Yeah, so are you going to just continue with this form of the finance committee and stuff? You're just going to continue working on that, or are you just going to take a general consensus as whether you should rework it?
So, well, that's probably the next one. So the one thing that seems to have come up seems to be the financial stuff. So the term of reference that obviously you're referring to is the one about the finances with the grants. Yes, is that sort of, that's the main one that seems to have come up.
When you're on mute again.
Me? I'm not mute. Again. Oh, sorry. So that seems to be the main one we're talking about contention now. We can put together terms of reference based on that, and then we can go through them item by item at the next meeting to see what it is and if you need to alter anything, or if you're really wanting to kind of throw out the finance committee's ability to give grant funding, then the whole council is going to have to, I'd put that forward as a resolution, the whole council is going to have to agree on that or disagree on that, however that falls.
James?
Yeah, looking on the different committees we've got here, we've got subsections for each one in kind of a yellow example of what the committee can do and can't do. I might be missing it, but the top one is the Whitworth Trust Board. An example for what they are going to be set up with, power-wise.
That's already covered by Companies House, by Charities Commission, and the agreement between the Whitworth and the Town Council. So I think starting point would say clearly you cannot, going back to what I've said many times, you cannot, it's a standalone company with the council as a sole member. So I think what the council should do is have a look again at the document that dispenses accountability and responsibilities between the council and the Whitworth. The
main thing that we do with the Whitworth Centre is we provide 7 councillors. That's our job really for the Whitworth, and then those 7 councillors go on to represent the council on the.
You can't have a separate company with a set of company directors and then another group of people undermining that responsibility and accountability.
We also always provide a chair. That's the other thing we do.
No specific delegated powers then, or any of those kind of things that we've got on all the other subcommittees?
No, because we don't delegate powers to them. They have their own by their own right.
Right,
Am I right in saying, Alan, that they're called the Articles of Association, and they've been written
Articles of Association, memorandums memorandums of understanding, and the bylaws are the 3 key documents.
And they've been written up by an independent solicitor, haven't they? Like,
yes, and agreed by the council.
Right. Okay. I'll have to have a look at those then. Okay.
Julie, you've got those, I think, haven't you?
I have, yeah. Thank you.
Is there any other questions on those? Any other comments, Anne?
I was just going to say it might be helpful if we summarise those in a comparable way to the other committees, just so that people can compare and contrast and see.
I can talk to you, Alan, about that next week, and we can update.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense.
I mean, just to finish this off, then I think what would really be helpful to Sean and I to take it to the next level and get to a point where we could start operating in this way would be, just to repeat what Sean said, if you could come back to us with your sort of particular skills, the things you don't like doing, and any preferences you've got, and then we'll tweak these terms of reference and bring them back to the council, and they. Hopefully, we can have a conversation where we agree those to start-up terms of reference and keep them under review perhaps for 3 to 6 months' time.
6 months. Once we've done it, it'll have to be for 6 months. So they'll be reviewed at 6 months, but then we'll review them yearly from there at the May meeting.
Yeah, and that's good idea. It's just I'm on 3 of those already, those committees. So
what will happen is that we'll reset. It'll be a complete restart. So we'll scrap the current ones that we've got, we'll scrap the membership and just restart again, basically, fresh, as though it was May.
Okay. So any other further comments, or are we in a place to move on?
Move on.
Yeah. Lovely. Thank you. Moving on to, sorry, thank you for your work on those. That's those are really well thought out documents. I think it gives a real clear idea to the council of where we're moving to. So thank you for that. Number 16, community awards. Alan?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. The council agreed earlier in the year that we would support the community awards again this year, and that was obviously prior to COVID coming along. And we also signed off for some money. Forgive me, I can't remember how much that was off the top of my head, but it doesn't really matter to this conversation. Sean and I had a chat about this the other day. On one side of me is saying this is, there's never been a more important year to do community awards, given what's happened in our community over the last few months. On the other hand, it would be unwise, I think, at this stage to commit to a big sit-down dinner inside the Whitworth in October, when we don't know at the moment we can't have more than 30 people in an inside venue anyway. However, of course, that is only one part of the community awards, isn't it, the dinner? The more important thing is that we give people the opportunity to be recognised, to be celebrated. So my view is that we should continue with the community awards as we discussed, in terms of now going and starting to appeal to the community, involving the peak advertiser again, involving the outlets that helped us around Darley Dale promote the scheme last year successfully. We should collect the votes in the same kind of way as we did last year, the nominations I should say. We should have the same kind of voting system as we had last year, but instead of a dinner, when we have the award winners, we personally go and take those awards to. So if Mary won Best Mayor Award,
This competition
would take
One second.
award to Mary's house and present it personally. We catch the photograph. We'd maybe give them, if they're not going to get a dinner, we maybe give them a £50 voucher or something of that order, so they can go and have dinner wherever they want when they feel safe to do so. So I guess what I'm proposing is a variation from what we'd originally agreed, which is we switch, which will actually be cheaper, but that's not the reason for doing it. The reason for doing it is to ensure people are safe and comfortable. And that subject to Sean and Ian's time and availability, we should crack on and start thinking shortly about getting the marketing of this going. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to just put on the table for you all.
I'd say that the way that the nominations were given might take a little bit of thought, because I don't think that shops would be willing to have nomination boxes and paper and pens.
Yeah.
We might have to just limit it. It might have to be just in one spot. You know, just have people essentially posting them into just one place. I don't know if we could put something in the community voice. I'm not sure when the next one's coming out off the top of my head, but we could perhaps put something in the community voice for people to rip out and then put in, I don't know, deliver to us. Perhaps that could be a way, or like they did in the Peak Advertiser. That might be the better way. And then the online voting, as we did before when I set up the online stuff.
Yeah. Hello.
Hi, James. Yep.
Right. Yeah. It's a fantastic institution. It worked really well. The impact was fantastic. I'm just thinking, do you think it might be worth delaying it for a little bit, and perhaps giving us more time to get the process done? It just worries me how people will react, as you say, to literally boxes, you know, getting stuff around. It would be nice to do it really, really nicely for people, but maybe it's timing. Maybe we.
Well, I'm absolutely open-minded. So clearly something needs to change. You know, certainly the dinner needs to change. I'm completely open to other thoughts as to the timing delay or doing it a different way.
I think what we can do with is a commitment from the council that we want to see this forward, but as well as a lead person on the council to sort of push this a little bit. So are there any volunteers as somebody who would like to lead it?
I mean, I'm more than happy to continue with Sean. I need a lot more help than I had last year, because I did pretty much all of it last year. I haven't got the time to do that this year. So assuming the time is still there with Sean.
It's on my calendar. You're scheduled in on the calendar. Yeah.
Dave?
Yeah.
Dave?
Just a thought, when all the new committees come up, and we know where people are and everything else, probably that's where you can get the help to get the awards sorted out. Have different people available.
Yeah,
we had considered an events committee, was the other thing that we'd sort of come up with as a next suggestion.
It also might slide into the resources one as well, and things like that. It's community based. So it might be to help complement what went off last year, and to help it along this year. It may be better to get these committees all formed up first and then get the help.
I would just say that adds in quite a delay, whereas obviously Sean and Ian are going to be doing quite a lot of work on the terms of references, and that's going to take an amount of time to do. Whereas in reality, this month we could have a group of people who are willing to put the time and thought into it. Dawn? Dawn, you're on mute again.
Sorry. I don't know what my skill set is, Alan. What things would you need help with? I'm happy to help, but I don't know what. Would you be able to?
I think the points that have been made on the call are good ones. So do we ask for any? It needs a bit of thought, firstly, around how we promote the scheme, given we're in the environment that we have. I think the Peak Advertiser will do a lot of the work for us around getting the sponsors. I don't think we need to ask as much money from the sponsors this year if there isn't a sit-down meal.
Well, I'm happy to help if you think there is things that I can do towards it. So yeah, I'm happy to help.
Can I make a suggestion? Yeah. Does anybody mind? Just my suggestion would be is if perhaps Dawn, myself, Ian and Alan and anybody else wants to join in, we sit down with a Zoom call, hash out a plan as to how we're going to do it, and then bring it and sort of and start moving forward with that if everybody's happy to go on with the
I think that's a great idea. I think maybe a little Zoom call next week to give out jobs would be a good idea. I'm happy to be involved in that.
Okay.
Okay.
So are we all happy with that?
Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. It was so lovely last year. It's always nice to say thank you to people. It's good that. Okay, item 17 is platform housing. That's you, Dave.
Yeah, just a quick one on this. As Dawn will know, I've been alerted to certain things over the past few months, one of which involved platform, and I got involved with district and county to resolve the problem. What came out of it was a lot of complaints had been placed towards platform about it, the issue I sorted out, but there's also quite a few other issues knocking around in the area, including Matlock, etc., etc. And we don't know who they are, or we don't speak to them. We used to engage with Dale's Housing when I was on the council previously, and we had a representative from there that we could talk to. And I feel that it's probably prudent to, again, under one of the committee, well, the committee for resources, everything, to get somebody involved with platform to represent the residents of Darley Dale, because I think it's an important fact that they don't know who to contact. They go on Facebook, they kick off something chronic, and basically we as a council are the last ones to get to know. If Dawn hadn't have told me what was going off, I wouldn't have known about it. And through contacting Jason Atkin and one of the ladies at district, we resolved the problem, but there are still a lot of problems.
Dave?
Yeah.
Sorry, you went really still there for a minute.
Sorry, I'm not dead. I'm still here. It's an age thing, don't worry about it. So the point is, we need to have a dialogue with platform. I know we haven't, and I know in the past we did, and it was very helpful on Ochre Estate when I used to deal with Dale's Housing. We got response.
Do you think, Dave, that could be done under the resource committee?
I would suggest that would be the ideal committee to handle that one.
Could you send us something to do that, and then we'll pop it in the terms of reference? If you send us a quick line or something, we'll stick it in the terms of reference. If you don't mind just emailing us something quick, and we'll pop it in.
Yeah,
and then they can take it on.
It's essential that we do get on board with, especially with a lot of housing associations coming into the area. We've got Nottingham, who, they're on the Cobb Slater end. Chevin's coming in at some point. We need to get in contact with these people who own. I
agree. It's a lot of it's important to a lot of our residents. So I agree. But I think if you could, like Sian asked, if you could pop something through to her.
I mean, a couple of phone calls, the problem went away. But if we as a council don't know about it, it doesn't look good, does it?
No, thank you. That's brilliant. Thanks, Dave. Lovely. Is any other comments?
No.
Thank you. Town audit, Alan.
Yeah, I'm going to straight away change the name. Audit was the first name I came up with, and it's not the right name. Call it a town report. And this plays a bit to a conversation that we were having earlier that Dave raised around district council and planning decisions being overruled. If this is a discussion document rather than proposal at this stage, and I guess what I'd like to get to at the end of it is a view on whether more thought should be given to this as to exactly what, if anything, we should do. So I guess if I repeat back some of the things I've heard in this meeting from people or in other meetings previously, I've heard that we are largely reactive in our approach to running the town council. We don't really report back to the community what we've done, or indeed what we plan to do for the next 12 months. And if we all asked, what is our plan for the next 12 months, we probably all have 12 different plans, wouldn't we? There is also as little real consultation with residents about what we might prioritise going forward. Now, we all talk to residents, don't we, as we heard today, but actually genuine consultation rather than consultation with a few individuals that we come across probably doesn't happen. certainly not a structured way. And the point that was raised earlier, we don't hold district or county to account for their service provision. So their service provision, I would include exactly the point that Dave made earlier, that planning decisions, we don't. I mean, it's not that we don't make planning decisions. It's just that all too often our recommendations are ignored or certainly overruled by district. So the idea I've got is to develop an annual town plan to try and address those 3 points. And I've just for discussion broken down what a town report might look like into 4 areas. One being that, is it a good place to live? Secondly, that does it have safe streets and neighbourhoods? Thirdly, does it have an active community? And fourthly, are we making every pound count? I've had a look, I'll come on to the detail of this in a second. I've had a look across other town councils and parish councils in England, and I couldn't find anybody doing this. Silly districts and counties do it. But in Scotland, it's different. In Scotland, there is far more local authorities like us in Scotland do this kind of work. Slightly different than I'm proposing, but I haven't found anything like this in England. So these are just ideas of the kind of things that would fall into each category. So on an annual basis, we would, under a good place to live, we would remind the community of what the neighbourhood plan is, so the principles behind the neighbourhood plan, because it's all like all documents. If you're not constantly repeating back to the community what the neighbourhood plan is and the main points in it, people will forget it. And we would produce a report of all the planning decisions that we've contributed to over the last 12 months, what our recommendation was and what the district did with those. And I think just having a document like that really sets out that we've had 50 different decisions over the course of 12 months and 25 times the district council overruled what we recommended. That kind of just rams the point home a little bit, that there is a problem here and can hopefully lead to the kind of debate that we were talking about earlier. The second category I've got is safe streets and neighbourhoods, and again, a lot of these things probably Dave does on a daily basis more than any of us really, which is looking out for. We had the issue about speeding on the A6, where we've had a couple of goes at trying to get the speed limits are on there. Also, just general road conditions where our residents or ourselves have spotted something that isn't quite right. Similarly, pavement conditionings. I mean, I've reported 1 or 2 things on pavement conditions, and I have no idea whatever happens with those. John will get a report back, but I don't feel like I get reported.
You don't tend to hear very much. So interestingly, the comparison between here and Nottinghamshire is a very different thing. So for Derbyshire, you get a number. That you report it, you get your reportable number. Occasionally you'll get back this has been solved, or if you ring up with a number to ask, then they come back to it. Otherwise, the first you know about it is the problem isn't there anymore. Whereas, so for example, in Nottinghamshire, when we report things, you then get back, we've solved this and here's your update. A lot of my stuff though as well, to be fair, through Nottinghamshire, I report a lot of things through our county and district councillors who always attend our meetings, which makes life easier. And then they will report back on everything that we do as well, and we have a very good rapport with them generally. So that does make life easier when they're there to come back and fill us in.
So in this idea, once a year is what we would just say, actually, either through our own work or by asking residents, we would say there are 5 streets in Darley Dale. Can I just finish off, James, and then I'll take a question. Just bear with me. There'll be 5. These are the 5 pavements in Darley Dale where residents and ourselves have the most concerns, and you highlight once a year. These 5 pavements are really a problem. Accessibility, in the sense, two meanings of the word accessibility. One is disabled access around the area, and just getting a commentary on how we think disabled access is. Also accessibility, picking up on things like, are the buses going to the right places? And I appreciate I'm probably putting more things into that than we'll want to do. So just treat this as discussion items. Lighting, are there any areas that the residents have identified as being poorly lit at night? And are there any areas where residents have identified that we've got concerns about antisocial behaviour? We would collect that little group of information by asking residents. Simple surveys will do that via Survey Monkey through the conversations we all have anyway. And we would then set out our recommendations to whichever is the right authority to implement, which might be us in some cases, but more often not will be district or county on that grouping. The third one I've called active community, which is just a brief summary of services available in the town. And here under this one, we would at least once a year, again, it can be Survey Monkey or something a little bit more than that, ask residents on where they see gap in facilities. We would represent those views back on if they'd like a youth club, whatever it may be. We'd either try and take it on ourselves, again, more readily. We would be able to demonstrate to the district and the county that we've done some proper consultation and our residents would love to have a new youth club in the town. And then making every pound count for the community in some ways is the easiest one, where we just communicate what we've done with the precept and start to lay ground for what we might do with the precept. And as Steve was talking at the last meeting or the meeting before that around, we should be spending more on the precept. Well, this is where you would introduce that concept. So I'll shut up. I know I've talked for a long time, but I'm not. So I've deliberately got quite a long list of stuff. It doesn't need to be a long list of stuff. It can be whatever we feel comfortable with. But I think it'd be quite innovative to do this. I think we'd be, as far as I can see, and I'll probably be wrong, the first town council to do something like this. And it really is representing residents' views and trying to hold other parts of the system to account.
I agree. I think I'm interested about what you said about planning, and that if we could sort of demonstrate, well, we've said 50 whatevers and 48 times have ignored us. I think that would be quite interesting, especially for the district, and that would hammer that home. Dave and then Julie.
Just a quick one, picking up on what Alan's just said. A lot of the points he's made are very valid. One of the conversations I've had with the police is that we don't interact with them. They just do their job, but they don't know what we want to do.
Yeah.
I've now got direct numbers into PCSOs, and I talk to Ripley a lot, but we need as a council to report out what we're doing. The community don't know what we're doing, and they don't know who to contact, funny enough. That's the biggest issue with most of the people I end up with. They don't know who to contact.
We get that a lot in the office. People will contact us for things that are not us. Like, so quite a lot of the time, sometimes half of my day can be directing people to district or county services.
Yeah.
Can we just keep the conversation focused around the audit? But yeah, that is a thing. Julie?
Yeah, I was just going to say regarding the keeping people informed on planning. I think I've mentioned before, I've thought for a while that some kind of column, within Community Voice, sort of planning news.
Yeah. Well, always when we talk, I'm going to talk about in a minute about the Community Voice, but absolutely, I think that would be a great article to have in there. James?
Yeah, I think it's a fabulous idea. I really do. I think there's a lot of issues in there, and it's layered into lots of different aspects. I think it would probably need its own subcommittee, literally on its own, for all those items. And yeah, it sounds, Alan, like you want to head up something like that and maybe see how it rolls.
Well, what I was going to suggest is that, like James says, each item in here very much leads into each committee. Yeah. So how about we have the ambition that in May we give back a town report, and I know that that's a long time coming, but there does seem to be a lot of work in here. Now, what we could commit to is by saying that our clerk can pull all of those reports together, but it is the responsibility of each committee to write their own section of the report, as in it would be the responsibility of the planning committee to talk about that element as well.
The best, can I recommend a place, is the annual town meeting. So as part of the reports that we do, and stick it in the annual town meeting. And the other thing is to say, invite as many people as we can into that annual town meeting to get them in. It's a good place to do it.
Town meeting, shouldn't it? Yeah. I mean, that's what it should be about. But then, over the year, we can proactively within each committee feed into this from each department. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that kind of works then, doesn't it? It gives it a feasible basis to be able to, look at feeding everything that you've mentioned there, which are all great, valid points, but you do need an outcome, don't you, from it? You need something that can, and if that individual committee is working on it, i.e. planning or the law and order of Dave, whatever he's doing, if it all feeds in and reports into this one body, then we can see a report at the end of it. Yeah.
Brilliant. So that would form quite a good focus, I think, for each committee. Ian?
Sorry, Alan, just so I understand this, is this about setting out our plans very clearly and giving ourselves some targets and reporting on what we've done against them? Or is it
Funny
something?
enough, it's less so that it is partly that, Ian. I guess it's today's point again, it's making it very clear to that we have understood residents' priorities, and we have and we are behind them in terms of communicating those priorities to the services that are important to them in our community that are reliant on the district and the county. So it's partly our own act and being clear on our own plan, but equally it's saying to the district or county, you know, our residents here are telling you that pavement can be, taking that simple example, you've got 10 pavements here that really need sorting out, or you know, there's a real problem that planning keeps being overruled and we need to sort this. So it's trying to act as a representative report of what residents want.
And
I think it's excellent. That's a great idea.
But the best way to go ahead with it as well is regular consultations. I think this is a conversation that me and Alan have had before, but having regular council consultations on everything, whether it be finance, and then acting on those consultations as they come in, you know.
If I could have just a bit of time from either, because I think what Mary suggested is exactly the right approach, that it fits into the various committees that we'll create, and we should ensure it does. So the final report of the structure needs to fit around the committee, because that'll make it easy for us. I think in some of the pre-work to build, we need to kind of plan, if May's our target, to put together what we need to do between now and May. And I'd be grateful for a bit of time from either Sean or you know, anybody else really, just to
I pitch for that, Sean.
We'll do it together.
All right.
So
okay.
this is finance as well,
Right.
so we'll take chunks of it each.
Okay, good, because this is good. This is excellent.
Okay, Dave?
Just to enforce what Alan's saying, I've got a lot of contacts up at district and county, and if you press the right button to get help, you just need the committees in place. You've gone to bed. Yeah.
Mary, can you extend the meeting?
Yeah, I was going to when Dave has finished. I was going to after the.
You want to extend it now, and I'll carry on.
I propose that we extend the meeting by 20 minutes.
Agreed.
Okay.
Everybody else? Yeah. Grand, thank you.
Right. Basically, just reiterating what Alan said, and if we can get these things in place, there are people. There's a nest of people up at county and district that can help us, and we need to start pressing a few more buttons to get a bit more help. And I think certain committees can get through to that.
I agree.
Okay.
Thank you. So are we all happy to start working on those things then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I've now lost my agenda. Hang on. Sorry.
Community voice now.
Oh, okay. Right. Thanks. So community voice. Now,
Town clerk's office.
so the community voice is a bit
There's
of
an item before that.
Mary, it's town clerk's office.
the town clerk's office. Thank you. Sorry. So Sean is wanting to go back into the office, which is brilliant. Now, I have previously asked Andy Sullivan about what the charges would be for using the Sir Joe room and having that as our council room. So I would appreciate if I could just have a little chat with you or Andy about the cost of that, because Andy said it was going to go and recalculate it. And we could,
yeah, okay, I'll happily chase him. I don't know where that's at, but I'll happily chase him.
I asked him a while ago, but I know that Steve has also been and found some details about renting a room in the short term at Molineux Business Park. I don't think we're in that situation anymore because I think we could just start to use the office again, but there's got to be some discussion about how that would work with the clerks and Kate in the office.
We'll need to do it slowly because, as I say, the sort of work within what the government guidance is. I haven't checked recently. I know the last time I checked it, it was work from home where you can. I'd like to leave Ian at home, to be honest with you, for now, because he's sorry Ian, but he's in a slightly more vulnerable category than I am, and I also need to work with Kate because the rest of the Whitworth building, from my understanding, is not yet open, only the cafe, and I need to work with Kate because there's 5 people in total that use that office, so I want to try and slowly work myself back into the office sort of a day at a time.
We can formulate a plan, and we just need to make sure that we're moving forward on that, really. So perhaps a call between you and I and
clearly we've got a risk assessment done on how the office is worked, and so yeah, more than happy. So there's 2 things, isn't there? One is the financial bit, and the second is the operational practicality of it.
Yeah,
I have spoken to Kate a little bit on it about starting to move back in. So
there's never, obviously, they are staying out of the office and environment as much as they possibly can themselves, and working from home as much as they possibly can. So whatever happens, we'll need a bit of a rota system going on immediately around who's in, and you all need to be aware of who's in when, so that you're collectively managing social distancing.
Okay, James?
Yeah, I remember we spoke about this some time ago, and we obviously were really keen to have our own office in the slightly bigger room. Is that what it was called, that particular room? Called the Sujo?
Yeah.
So that is definitely something that is under discussion, is it?
Yeah,
I just don't know what discussion. I don't know whether Steve and Mary, you've talked to Andy. I don't know where that's at. So
we just need to revisit that.
Maybe it must be 6-8 months ago.
No, not that long.
Is it not that long ago?
No.
Okay, 6 months ago.
Right.
About it, but we've had no response, so it would be good to see if it's possible.
Mm.
Well, clearly, if you asked 8 months ago, you should have had a response by now. So
we lost audio.
Yeah.
Sorry, we lost audio there.
Who's just saying
sorry, my printer going in the background.
We'll revisit that situation.
Right. Okay.
Okay. We'll hopefully have some more information next month.
Brilliant.
Okay, so community voice. So Carol had put out a tender, of which Louise Mackenzie was successful in winning the tender. Now, the details of the contract were being finalised, and that is when COVID hit. And so the contract didn't get signed. And since with Louise, we've been working on a different method for the community voice. So we have been, the way that all the articles are collected is slightly different. We've also gone to an online rather than a paper copy. Had quite a long chat with Louise last week. And she raised whether or not we wanted to keep the community voices being online. And what we could do is have maybe 20 printed copies to post out to people who requested them. Details of that could be found on our notice boards. I am quite aware that we've got residents who don't necessarily use the internet, so it would be useful to also have copies that we could hand out. I thought maybe we could have sort of 50 copies a month, maybe in the Whitworth Centre, that people could collect as they were passing. That is something that really needs quite a lot more discussion, as does the actual running of the community voice. Obviously, Carol was our editor, and Carol used to source all of the articles, so she would email around, chase around, collect the articles, send them off to Louise, who would then process them. We don't have anybody to do that job now that Carol's resigned. So what we are going to need is basically a new comms department to start, a new comms committee to start working on things like the community voice. Louise Mackenzie is going to be on holiday over August, and what I committed to her was that the council would somehow, probably between Sian and I, find the articles for the community voice ready to give Louise for the start of September, so that we could have an online community voice in the middle of September. It would be lovely if we could have some help with that from the rest of the council. Any questions?
Is there a comms group still? There is still a comms group, yeah?
There is still a comms group. That's Marisa Dawn and I, yeah.
Okay. Right.
I'll offer anything personally. Just a different thought would be, we haven't started this process yet, but through the lottery funding, one thing we are able to do for a 12-month period is to recruit somebody who's going to be our communication events lead, working 3 days a week. They're going to be working 3 days a week on the Whitworth, but it might be an option for the council to consider if that person worked 4 days a week and focused on communications for the council. That's obviously going to cost money, so you would employ that person for half a day or 1 day extra a week. If you wanted me to cost that up as an alternative option to have somebody focused on council comms for the year, I could easily do that.
That brings us into secondary one, which is that we hire somebody in place to do events and communication, including the community voice. Ourselves, we bring someone in ourselves.
Well, so I'm going to bring somebody in 3 days a week for the Whitworth because I've got the funding for that. It's just whether I'm happy to make that offer.
Okay, that's interesting. That is interesting, James.
Yeah, just obviously we're rearranging these the different committees at the moment. When they're all in place with the strengths and weaknesses of various people in different areas, would that be a time to look at this a bit deeper?
It would be, but we've got to get the community voice out. Yeah, no, I think absolutely it would be a time to look at how we deliver the community voice. But Louise, understandably, is conscious that she doesn't just want the council to turn around and say, well, you've done this work. And to a certain extent, she said no to other contracts because we promised her, we made the commitment to her that we would have the community voice contract. And I think that we do have a place where we should honour that somewhat.
Could I ask
Yeah,
if it's, are we not going to move to paper copies at all?
well, as is the question with 95% of the things at the moment, is when do you do that? I mean, we've not had a peak advertiser for a while now, and so our community voice paper copies went out with the peak advertiser. So if the peak advertiser aren't taking them,
We've just had one. We've just had
two.
They're back now. They're all furloughed. The whole team is furloughed, but they are back working now.
Yeah.
In terms of your community reach at the moment, the Facebook page is far and away the biggest channel you've got. But it does link to the website, if I remember right. I think Louise posts the community voice to the website. Actually, people go into the website just to see community voice without going through Facebook. Tiny number, but actually through Facebook it's quite high.
Do you know the figures offhand?
Well, I could make a guess, but the problem is because we put community voice on the home page, anybody hitting the page records a hit, so it's a bit difficult, Mary. But I would say it's about 5 to 1 or something like that in terms of Facebook usage. So 5 Facebook users for everybody else browsing it.
There are other ways as well. So, for example, at Roseley, I have a subscriber email, and anybody that basically wants emailing it out, you can email out. If people want to subscribe with us to have it emailed out to them, we could do it that way as well. I know we've certainly moved digital.
I think this is obviously, again, a bigger conversation that will have to be had with the comms group and a proposal brought forward, but there's quite a lot of thinking. I'd appreciate your thoughts on all of those things. I don't want to take up too much time now because I am conscious of the time, but I would appreciate if you could email me any thoughts that you've got on those. Sian and I, we will together work on the next community voice and make sure that all those articles are sorted and sent out. But I would appreciate any thoughts that anybody has on that, and we can talk about that maybe at a bit more length next meeting. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Lovely. To approve the pension training for the clerk, she has asked for some pensions training, which the personnel committee have agreed to, but we need to agree the cost of that. It was £275. £75. But that will help with her understanding.
Bunker for that.
Pardon?
I can get a bunker for that.
I can get pensions training. That's what I can get, Dave.
Helps keep us legal, Dave. That's what we're about. So can I propose that we pay for that pensions training?
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Seconded. Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Thank you. I'll book that.
Lovely. And I bet that's really fun. Decisions on planned and annual events. Got to make it quick, Sean.
Right, so this is a fairly quick one. Basically, I need decisions from you on Remembrance Service. My suggestion for Remembrance Service, based on the current situation at this moment, is that we forget the parade for this year, because I've got no guarantee I've got police to do it, and the parade, to be honest, is the most likely place for people to be squashed in small numbers without gaps between them. We could in theory try and do it, but how we're going to manage that parade to keep everybody 2 meters apart, I'm not quite sure. So I would suggest that we do the service outside, and then we have tea and coffee served outside as well. I have spoken to the Whitworth and they've said that that's possible to do so, because obviously we can't guarantee how many people are going to come, we can't guarantee numbers, we cannot guarantee where they'll enter the parade. We don't really want to encourage people queuing together in large numbers on the side of the road in crowds and sort of witnessing it go down. It is a bit of a crowded draw, and if we think so, there's quite a lot of crowd events and things that have already been cancelled. I don't want to cancel the Remembrance Service completely if we don't have to. I'd like to do it, but I'd like to do it in the safest way possible, and having a look at it and having a look at all the risks, my best suggestion is that we do it as a service, as we have done before, but socially distanced service with an outside tea and coffee.
I think that sounds fair. I think they've cancelled a lot of events, and it would.
Yeah.
I think
my next suggestion is that we cancel the panto. We cannot, if we can't get the amount of people into that panto, we spend an awful lot. We spend £1,400 on a panto that only 30 people at a time can see. Now I know this is December.
We still do carols. You're not cancelling Christmas. We can still do carols.
We can potentially do carols outside. So I could potentially put together a carol service outside, which wouldn't be a problem. We could perhaps even have it near where the War Memorial is. And I could even speak to the lovely Alan, if we're saving money on the panto, perhaps we do mulled wine and something outside. If I can speak to the Whitworth.
Can we call it Christmas Sparkle, please?
We can call it Christmas Sparkle.
I hate to say it, but of course people aren't even allowed to sing in church at the moment.
Yeah, that's the problem.
You project your voice.
You do.
And all the rest of it.
You can sing if you are an organised or you make your money from singing. However, you can't do it if you're just a volunteer. So that may be off the card as well. So, and it would definitely have to be outside. But the pantomime inside, if we are in a similar situation to what we are now, it's a no-go.
Okay, Dave.
With the service that you're referring to, it's whether the clergy are going to get involved as well.
Yeah.
And the band, because without one or the other, you're not going to get anything.
That's the thing.
You're allowed a brass band.
No.
No, there are lots of rules about music.
You can have a string one, but not a brass one.
Yeah. So what
have your ukulele.
So what up about ukulele? What I would suggest is that we look to try and do that in November. If things have loosened up and we're now allowed to sing in public or all the rest of things, then we do the remembrance service in that way. If they haven't, then we'll have to cancel the whole thing. But at least we haven't made a major expenditure on it, or put in huge hours of work to cancel something that can't go ahead.
Well, why don't you also be interested to see where the panto people were at, whether or not they were actually going to bother going?
I don't think that it's viable to do that pantomime at all, because we cannot get the numbers of people in to the space. I think it's a risk not worth taking, Mary. I think it's dangerous, to be quite honest, particularly at flu season.
Okay. So
James?
Yeah, it sounds very simple to me. It sounds that Remembrance Sunday's on in a format and everything else is off.
Yeah.
If that's all right.
Can I just throw one here?
Dave?
We need to be in unison with all the other areas. So we don't want to be the one that cancels anything on the remembrance if everybody else carries on.
That's what I've been thinking, which is why I've left messages for all of the surrounding larger councils to please contact me about their remembrance services.
Well, district or county should put a directive out on that one soon.
They should, but they haven't yet. So I can only go on what I've got. And we would need to do the consultation now to close the road, and we just haven't got the time.
No, I don't think it's worthwhile having the parade. But you can have the service without the singing and whatnot. Can't
If
you?
we're allowed to not sing, yeah, if you're allowed to do it without singing.
Yeah.
And no band.
Yep.
Thanks.
So, all right, are you happy with that? Yeah.
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 I mean, yes, but no.
Yeah.
Okay, so Councillor Crystal, Steve wanted an August meeting. How do you feel about that?
I've also said the same thing.
So we have to have a meeting in August?
We're getting quite behind.
Yeah.
Okay, so quick as can then, I propose that we have a meeting in August instead of
20th of August. Is
I
your
second.
third.
Second.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Ian will clerk that because I'm not here.
Okay.
If that's all right.
and so that is the date for our next meeting. So that is the
20th.
public part of the meeting. Thank you. Now, do you want to turn the recording off?
Leave it on.